think black people get enough credit for the fact that we responded to the stereotype of not being able to speak properly by creating a music genre that uses more English and literary devices in it than literally any other music genre. And not only that, but that genre proceeded to become the biggest form of music in the 21st century to a point where...
While they were having their Great Depression, we were having our Renaissance, the Harlem Renaissance. Those two timelines ran concurrent at the same time. Not only that, though. So you know how, like, in America, in history, we were never really given anything. We were never given anything, and if we did...
Did you know that one of the deadliest massacres in American history happened because white people were afraid of a dance, or rather what that dance symbolized? I'm Zoe, and welcome back to Artist Activism. A series we're going to break down important social movements by looking at art. And today we're going to look at this poster, and this poster is talking about the 19...
As a black woman, my lived experience in this country was embodied by a photograph that was taken in celebrating the 250th. Yeah. Unfortunately, in this country, people have different lived experiences. So while some may have a lived experience like this is the best country in the world.
We are here to talk about the fact that Black Americans are not safe. If I'm going to be quite frank, when I do this work in these types of circles, I'm not safe. But I do them out of necessity.
Why are you not safe in the circle?
Being an African American.
So stitch this and tell me something that white people aren't ready to hear.
We white women have an inferiority complex. The Negro women have a sort of reputation for being so beautiful. We're a little jealous of them.
I guess you just envy us colored people.
That black women were there to support me and to advise.
So since this seems to be a topic of conversation on TikTok right now about how black Americans are choosing to opt out of being on the front lines against everything that's going on with this stuff that's outside that starts with I. White and non-white people alike.
Imagine being told for generations that you are inferior, you are less intelligent, you cannot make it in life, you are not beautiful, you are less capable, and somehow you are not good enough. But then, despite all of that, you start creating culture, you start, building communities, producing art and influencing the entire world. Now, imagine the same people who underestimated you, the same people who enslaved you, the same people who segregated you, the same people who looked down on you, watching you rise all the way to the top. Anyway, you are able to do things they cannot do. You are somehow having, some talents they cannot get, they cannot have. I mean, could that be part of what makes black progress to feel so uncomfortable for some racist white people? Because this conversation gets really deep and, I think it's real. You see, from the Harlem Renaissance to rap music, innovation, representation, and black excellence, these clips raise some shocking questions. But here's like the crazy part. Sometimes the very people pushing back against these conversations may accidentally reveal why they matter. So let's get into this, because white America may have accidentally exposed something they never intended black people to see. So let's watch the video all the way to the end, and then we can come for more commentary. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. If you may find any value, please like it. Let's watch How Come Later.
Young brown boys and girls can look at me and go, hey, he looks like me and he's doing what?
Why does everything in 2026 have to be about skin color? Can we stop seeing color?
No, we can't. And the fact that I have to explain why it's important to celebrate the first black person to do something is as sad as the reason we have to do that. And the reason we celebrate Victor Glover as the first black astronaut on a moon mission is simple. It is systemically more difficult for black and brown Americans to reach the top because in our country, prejudice is embedded in the rules of the competition. And before saying that America should not see color, I think you have to remember that the first U.S. president was inaugurated in 1789, and it would take us 220 years to elect the first black president. Remember that the Federal Reserve Bank has had a chair since 1935, and not one of them has ever been a black American. Oh, and that the first black American woman to ever sit on the board was removed by Trump to the point that she had to file a lawsuit. That the House of Representatives has yet to elect the first black speaker. That the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was nominated in 1989, and it would take 34 years to get the second one. And that the NFL has over 70% of black players, but there is no black majority owner in the entire league. These are the reasons why we celebrate these achievements, because they are exceedingly rare. Trust me, we all look forward to the day when this becomes normal, but we're farther away from that than the moon is from the earth. And that day of normalcy becomes even more elusive through videos like yours, because people who like you demand demand we stop seeing color are just uncomfortable admitting that there are systemic barriers that make it impossible for people to succeed or even compete just because of their skin color, gender identity, or religion, just to name a few things. This attitude is just as nonsensical as those who scream that all lives matter. We know it, but we also understand that that's not the point. Then again, it might be a difficult concept to grasp if one is part of the poorly educated.
I think black people get enough credit for the fact that we responded to the stereotype of not being able to speak properly by creating a music genre that uses more English and literary devices in it than literally any other music genre. And not only that, but that genre proceeded to become the biggest form of music in the 21st century, to a point where now you have a bunch of white and Korean rappers who are trying to appropriate the style of that genre. Like, the fact that rap is not talked about in that context is crazy to me. I don't want my kids around them. They can't even talk right. And now your daughters are rehearsing dreams and nightmares a week before prom so she don't look out of place in them Snapchat stories. That's a crazy look. Like, no bullshit, you could teach a good 70% of fundamental literary concepts solely through Lil Wayne's verse on 6 Foot 7 Foot. Where is the white equivalent? Mind you, while this genre is still at the height of its popularity, y'all just voted for a president who can't use words longer than 2 syllables of his speeches. Like, Shakespeare was really back there in the 1500s just making up words, just cooking up bullshit in the kettle, and it took for black people in the 70s for rap to exist. Y'all had all that English out there all that time, and y'all didn't think, well, let's just put the poem into a song and speak it a little bit faster? Really? Superior race? Okay. Genuinely imagine the opposite of this. Imagine if white people went to African nations and they started making African songs with African languages better than the Africans were. Do you know how wild that would be?
They were having their Great Depression. We were having our Renaissance, the Harlem Renaissance. Those two timelines ran concurrent at the same time. Not only that, though. So you know how, like, in America, in history, we were never really given anything. We were never given anything. And if we did get something of our own, they would take it from us, or they would find a way to destroy it. So during the During the Great Depression, white people had gold, like gold necklaces, gold rings, gold coins, whatever, right? And that was kind of like their wealth, because like it accrued wealth over time and value over time. The government forced all them people to give them their gold. The government stole everybody's gold. Said they created an executive order, said give us your gold so that we can avoid gold hoarding and that it could back the reserves, so that the Great Depression that we're currently in doesn't last as long. Black people didn't have gold. We didn't have gold. So during this Great Depression, not only were they taking houses, they was taking gold. Neither one of these things affected the black community as much as it affected the other communities. Because we didn't have shit. What do you mean? The funny part about this is, after the white people gave them their gold, say you had like a $5,000 gold certificate. By the time you gave it to the government, that next day, that gold certificate was now worth $10,000, and you're not seeing a cent of it because they only gave you $5,000 cash. That's it. That's it. The government robbed these niggas. And then imagine being a white person. Imagine being a white person. You look around at your fellow white counterparts, and y'all all broke. And then y'all look across the street, and black people up there, they created chitlin circuits, lecture circuits. They over there educating each other, innovating, creating, inventing shit. They happy to the motherfucker. I mean, it makes sense why they would create something like the Zoot Suit riots. Or they start fucking with us for no fucking reason. It would make so much sense why they would just literally start fucking with us. I'm not saying I agree, but I get why they some fucking haters. Like, imagine that. Imagine that. So to the person that actually triggered this topic, because I got a DM. Yes, during the Great Depression, we were creating. This is when we got our footing as a community, because it was the early 20s, early 30s. We had only just got free 1860s, free in the 1860s. So you already know, like a lot of us, we were uneducated, we were poor. It's not like they took the chains off and gave us any type of help. We had to figure it out on our own. So we only a generation, 2 generations into like the free black community. So of course we didn't have much. So during the Great Depression, we was already living in our Great Depression for like 400 years. So it didn't really affect us as much. Now granted, there was a free black population. There was a bourgeois. So there was a part of the black community that was affected by the Great Depression. But as for like the majority of us, That's why it was so easy for us to take that pain and turn it into dances, into songs, into hymns, quilts, poems, fucking books, everything you could think of. Like the Harlem Renaissance is just so beautiful because it's just pure black creation. Everything. We created everything. Everything. But yeah, it did run concurrent. So at the same time that white people was over here struggling, black people was innovating. We took that nothing and made everything out of it. I love us. I'll always say this. I love us. Okay. So yeah, thought I'd give y'all that lesson. Did you know this?
Did you know that one of the deadliest massacres in American history happened because white people were afraid of a dance, or rather what that dance symbolized? I'm Zoe and welcome back to Art as Activism. This series we're going to break down important social movements by looking at art. And today we're going to look at this poster. And this poster is talking about the 1970 Wounded Knee protests, but also talking about the Wounded Knee massacre of 1890. And it's really important to learn about this because first of all, we don't talk about it enough in school, but also it helps us understand why resistance movements by oppressed peoples are often deemed as threats to current power structures and white supremacy. Let's break down the history of the Wounded Knee massacre in an easy way. By 1890, the Lakota Sioux, who were located in parts of northern U.S. and parts of Canada, were already enduring years of hardships, from broken treaties to forced displacement to buffalo herds being eliminated and forcibly removed. Things were not looking great for the Lakota Sioux. Many Lakota families were confined to reservations, and even traditional ceremonies like the Sundance were banned. Then something unexpected happened. The ghost dance started to spread across the U.S. and was providing these indigenous communities a sense of hope. It first appeared in Nevada in 1870 and started to gain popularity when the Paiute prophet Wovoka started to revive the dance. Why do people do this dance? Well, they did it for a couple of reasons. Its supporters believed that participants in this ritual circular dance would first of all attract a future in which the white colonists would be destroyed and America would be destroyed. But also they believed that they would have a resurrection of everything that was taken from them by the white settlers, and that their land, their buffalo and herds, and even their dead ancestors would be brought back to life. But not unexpectedly, white settlers saw this as a threat. Governments saw the dance as the possible occurrence of an indigenous uprising. One federal agent even telegraphed Washington saying, "Indians are dancing in the snow and are wild and crazy. We need protection." And that reference to protection really matters, because throughout colonial history, nothing about American colonial projects was about protecting indigenous communities. It was all about protecting and maintaining a white supremacist structure in which white people were meant to be seen as citizens worth saving and protecting. Because meanwhile, indigenous communities were constantly seen as being savage and crazy and irrational, and Europeans were contrasted by being seen as rational and pure. This is really important because American freedom was imagined through the expansion of white settlement. So then true freedom and true protection for Americans meant essentially eradicating and eliminating indigenous populations. So on December 29, 1890, the government essentially tried to eradicate the population and to get rid of the ghost dance. After one shooting of a gun, what followed was a massacre. Between 100 and 300 people were killed, and most of them were women and children of the Lakota Nation. Actually, 20 veterans received the Medal of Honor for essentially ending the lives of innocent people who were dancing a peaceful protest. Wounded Knee did not just disappear after that tragedy. In 1971, hundreds of people gathered around the same location to protest the government's mistreatment of indigenous peoples and disrespect of indigenous treaties. That also shows me the power of collective community activism and organizing, where people come together in unison. They can actually use their voices collectively to demand for better and to challenge the status quo. But overall, the criminalizing of the ghost dance and the Lakota Nation's protest shows us too a peaceful protest is often deemed as dangerous when it challenges systems of power. It also shows us too how people in power can use fear as a way to justify oppression. For example, the US used their fear of the ghost dance to justify indigenous oppression and the massacre of indigenous peoples. But still, the Lakota resistance shows me that resistance does not require much force. It requires intention, it requires community organizing, and it requires people coming together to protest systems of oppression.
As a Black woman, my lived experience in this country was embodied by a photograph that was taken in celebrating the 250th. Yeah. Unfortunately, in this country, people have different lived experiences. So while some may have a lived experience like this is the best country in the world, and while there's some stuff that goes on, you know, other things are okay, That, for me, was a defining image of modern America for Black Americans. Defining. That Patriot Front is a white nationalist organization founded in 2017 after the deadly Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. You know what they promote? An ultra-nationalist ideology that focuses on creating a white ethno-state in the United States with the ultimate goal of reshaping American society to align with their vision of racial and cultural homogeneity. As a Black woman, I'm sitting there in my country, and that's the type of fear I have to experience.
We are here to talk about the fact that Black Americans are not safe. If I'm going to be quite frank, when I do this work in these types of circles, I'm not safe. But I do them out of necessity.
Why are you not safe in the circle?
Being an African American in primarily white spaces is not safe for me mentally or emotionally. We will go into more depth about that, but I appreciate that question.
I'm here on a journey towards a brighter future for myself and for, hopefully the world. My promise to myself is to love myself, which is so important, and I've struggled so much with that. I've struggled so much with it in my life, to love myself. My promise to the Black community is to be so much better than I have been to them.
The Blacks that live in the United States, it's not that people hate you, it's that they hate on you. You guys are tall, you guys are big, you guys are strong, you guys are fast. You guys have the most amazing voices. The way you articulate things, different level.
I think it's both. When they so-called freed the slaves, 30 years after that, we built cities and colleges and hospitals and airstrips and banks, and that became a threat. America is a country of competition. Everything is about money. It's soulless. Rich whites don't care about poor whites. When it comes to us and then seeing us as competition, they have to make sure that we are always at the bottom fighting up.
So stitch this and tell me something that white people aren't ready to hear.
We white women have an inferiority complex. The Negro women have a sort of reputation for being so beautiful. We're a little jealous of them.
I guess you just envy us colored people.
That Black women were there to support me and to advise me, but not to rise above or become better than me. And that's why when this Black teacher was way better and more talented than me, I felt some kind of way about it. Now, I'd imagine lots and lots more white women have also internalized the same idea, and that's why they feel okay stealing Black women's content and not giving them any credit, because the Black women are just there to advise them anyway. But most Black women are natural leaders.
We're jealous. I think we're jealous because we would love to be that, I think, and we don't know how to break out of the indoctrination that we have been suppressed by our entire life.
So since this seems to be a topic of conversation on TikTok right now about how Black Americans are choosing to opt out of being on the front lines against everything that's going on with this stuff that's outside that starts with I, white and non-white people alike have felt comfortable coming to the internet to say that Black people should not be sitting out of it on this one. And I want you guys to really think about what you're saying, because Black people have never had the option to opt out, and they are not really opting out now. They're just choosing not to be on the front lines because when they're on the front lines, only more brutality comes after that, and people die and nothing changes, and they've been fighting forever. If you really fucking think about it, Black people have never stopped being a target. Just because other people are targets now does not mean that Black people are still not a target. Do you know what I mean? Don't you think if they could sit this out, that they would sit out police brutality too? Also, they have, like I said earlier, they've been fighting this fight for a long time. And guess who didn't care? Guess who said maybe you should follow the law, maybe you should be a criminal, maybe you should XYZ, finding every excuse in the book to justify the killings of innocent Black people all over. So yeah, that's really rich. That's really rich for you guys to be telling Black people that they need to be up and fighting. They have been fighting. They fight every single day of their lives. When they go outside, there is no guarantee that they are going to be safe from police brutality or just any type of brutality from the government, like in the prison system, like the judicial system, etc. These are all things that they cannot opt out of.
I genuinely think a huge reason why a lot of white Americans are so resistant to the idea of like revolutionary change and black liberation and, you know, getting a system that isn't just built on the exploitation of labor and minorities. I think a huge reason for that is because like so much of white American identity is based around consumption and this lifestyle, this hyper-consumeristic lifestyle that we've developed, and the idea of superiority from that, of like, this will make you better, this consume and it'll make you better. And we don't really have like any faithful sort of many cultural traditions that aren't rooted like in white Americans in consumerism. Like pretty much all of our modern holidays are just consumerism, even if they originally had roots in like pagan traditions. And so I think it's genuinely really difficult for a lot of white Americans to find an identity outside of consumerism and thus to support true revolution.
Welcome back. Now, after watching all these clips all the way to the end, I think there's one thing that becomes very clear. This conversation is bigger than one viral video, one argument, or one person sharing their experience, or, you know, white people exposing what they were not supposed to expose, what they intended black people not to see, not to know. And I mean, we are talking about history, we are talking about culture, we're talking about the identity and the way people react when they see black Americans refusing to shrink themselves, refusing to, you know, be where white people want them to be, refusing to back down whenever they have to, you know, go forward. Now, that does not mean every white person is scared of black people, of course, and the point is not to create hatred between communities, like between black community and other communities, but we can absolutely examine the patterns, the discomfort, and sometimes the fear surrounding black progress. And that brings us to the biggest message throughout this video. But maybe before we get to that, if you may find value in the video, please give it a like, and if you are new to the channel, please subscribe so we can have more of these discussions. Otherwise, yeah, the first one, black Americans have repeatedly turned struggle into creation. Remember, there is this thing that people mostly say, like when they give you lemons, you need to create lemonade. It's like something which is bitter, you turn into something which is sweet, which is, you know, tasty. Now, from spiritual to and maybe literature to the Harlem Renaissance, from jazz and blues to hip hop, black creativity has continued to, you know, shape American and global culture. Yes, global culture. Even in Africa, okay, even in Africa, black Americans still influence. You cannot talk about the biggest musicians that in the world that Africa admire, excluding black people in America. That cannot go. It can't happen like that. You talk about the Rick Ross, you talk about all those people, okay? They influence even in Africa. So, I mean, when people were denied opportunities, they still found ways to create something powerful, something, you know, admirable. And maybe that is what makes the story to be so incredible. You can restrict resources from black people, from black Americans, from black communities, but you cannot permanently destroy imagination. You cannot permanently destroy who they want to be. You cannot destroy their vision, their dream. Now, the second message is about representation. Now, let's talk about it. People have been asking, why does it matter if someone like is the first black person to achieve something? Why does it bother them? Well, because history matters. You see, when entire institutions have existed for generations, have existed for so long a period of time without meaningful black representation at the highest level, that first achievement, you know, represents barriers being broken. It's something to be proud of. Like, okay, at first, black people could not allow to do this. Today, black people can do it without even somebody's permission. So it tells young black children, like, you belong in spaces where people once acted like you did not, and see somebody who looks like you succeed, can change what you believe is possible, okay, or is impossible. What do you think black people cannot do? You start to see, no, black people can do it, okay? There is this thing that keeps coming up, that the black people have invented a lot of things, including the refrigerator, okay? So they don't want this to be taught in school. Why? Young black kids, When they know this, they can be so motivated to believe in themselves, but they don't want black people to believe in themselves, so they had to hide some of important history from black people. Now, the third message is that black Americans are tired of being expected to carry every struggle, to carry every tough situation. Now, think about it for a second. You see, for generations, black Americans have fought against slavery. They have fought against segregation. They have fought against discrimination, police violence, and the exclusion. So when people demand that the black communities must always be on the front lines for everyone else, trying to fight for everyone else, it is understandable that, yeah, some people may come and then ask, where was the time, energy, black people like needed energy, and then the people came and supported them? Yes, black people have supported other communities, but whenever they need support, who comes for them? So that is not necessarily about abandoning others. It is about recognizing that black people have their own battles, and they have the right to decide where their energy really goes. And the fourth message is about discomfort. Yes, let's talk about it. Because sometimes people say they want a colorblind society, that but they become uncomfortable when the race is discussed honestly. Okay, they don't want people to look at the color of somebody. But now, when these issues come, people feel uncomfortable. But you cannot understand the present while pretending like the past it never happened, while pretending that black people have not been discriminated, have not been enslaved, while pretending that black people don't need reparations. You cannot explain why representation matters if you refuse to acknowledge who was historically excluded. And you definitely cannot tell black Americans to stop talking about race when race was used for centuries to determine who could vote, who could own property, who could have, some rights or attend certain schools or live free. If you cannot really understand this, it's really hard for you to know where America is going, or whether the American dream is going to be fulfilled. And the fifth is, and maybe that's the biggest message, is that black progress itself can challenge all the ideas about who is supposed to lead, who is supposed to create, who is supposed to succeed, who is supposed to achieve what, or maybe who is supposed to define American culture. And that challenge can make people to feel so uncomfortable, to feel so, challenged, okay? Not because black success is wrong, not because it destroys all the stereotypes that were used to justify inequality, no. But because, yes, you cannot forever put black people under your feet. Whatever you do, they'll rise to the top. I mean, every successful black scientist, every successful artist, entrepreneur, athlete, professors, astronauts, leaders become evidence that those old ideas were never the truth, okay? That black people cannot rise to the top, black people are less intelligent, black people are inferior, black people, they are less capable. It questions those, like, no, it wasn't the truth. So maybe that is part of what this conversation accidentally, exposes. The fear is not it's not that some mysterious black people may take over. Like, no, it's not like that. The real shift is that black Americans are increasingly refusing to accept a place that other people, racist white people, historically tried to assign to them. Like, oh, you belong to be under, you don't have to be doing this, you don't have to be, popular, all those things. So I think that is powerful to the black community. Because black progress does not require anyone's distraction. Yes, it's not that, because people think that when black people rise to the top, then they will take away somebody else's freedom. That's not the way. Okay, black excess does not mean another race must lose. But black Americans absolutely have the right to build. They have the right to create, compete, to lead, to celebrate themselves, and have black joy and demand recognition. It's that simple. So at the end of the day, I think the biggest takeaway in this video is simple. Keep creating. Keep building as black people. Keep telling the truth about history, and never allow anybody, never allow any racist to make you feel guilty for celebrating black achievement, for celebrating your success. Because after everything black Americans have endured, surviving was already remarkable. But thriving is something, It has to be something that motivates everybody else. Now that it's the best part that they never expected. So I don't know what's your take. Let's discuss down in the comments below. If you are new to the channel, please give it, subscribe, like it if you may find anything, valuable in the video, and I'll greatly appreciate. Above all, keep creating, keep joyous. See you next time. I'm proud of you.